Hello and welcome to another episode here on the Mole Under Management channel. My name is ChaosMole and today we're having our second episode of how Age of Wonders 4 is trying to push the 4X journal forward, and this time we are focusing on creating your own race/faction. And if you have already played any of the Age of Wonders games before this, you kinda know what to expect because creating factions was always a thing which existed beforehand. But this time they're really trying to push it forward and give you countless of options and traits you can change out, and you are not as limited as before. And I think this is one of the most important parts here. The limitations which were available in the previous Age of Wonders games were kind of obvious. Like you did play a few rounds in, let's say, Age of Wonders 3 or Age of Wonders Planetfall, and after that you realized very quickly, okay, there is quite a bit of options I can go with when I'm creating my own factions, but in reality, it just sometimes doesn't work, right? Like one of the prime examples is if you wanted to like take Age of Wonders Planetfall, you would have the dwarves, and then you would combine it with the bioweapon trait, and that kind of didn't work at all, right? And so this time, they're really taking the whole faction creation apart and make it so that you can choose just which traits you want to combine into your faction, and this time you can really make it your own. If that is too complicated for you, I have some good news. As you can already see on the left side, there's already a library of pre-created factions. So if you are somebody who thinks, oh no, this is too much, man, this is too complicated, or man, I just want to play the game, don't you worry. There are tons of factions right from the get-go you can just choose from, and then you can just jump right into the game. What we want to focus on today is what can you do with create your faction. And the first thing they're having is that you can actually just choose your physical form, aka your race. And you maybe know this from other 4X games, or if you have played Age of Wonders, whenever you choose your race, this is like a huge step already in the direction what you want to do, like civilization. Every leader you're choosing from has specific perks, specific talents, specific passives, right? And if you choose the leader, you're basically set in on how you want to play the next round. And that makes it, of course, pretty easy. But Age of Wonders just says, you know what? Go wild. Create your own leader with your own perks. And again, the previous Age of Wonders games did have that, but they were pretty limited in what you could do. Most of the time you choose the faction and then you use their speciality, and that was it. You were still very much locked in into certain perks and points. And this time it's different. So you can see the physical forms here, right? We have dwarves, humans, halflings, orcoids, redkin. Like we have like tons of different races, and they are always coming with a body trait and a mind trait. And we can see the orcs here, right? The orcs are coming in with the body trait strong and the mind trait ferocious. Strong increases the melee and physical ranged attack damage by 10%, while ferocious deals 40% damage via retaliation attacks and opportunity attacks. Retaliation is when somebody attacks you, you are doing a counterattack. Or an opportunity of attacks is, of course, when somebody is trying to get close to you and past you, you can just slap them, right? Pretty simple. And the first thing you think is, oh man, so I'm already locked in a certain directions with the orcs, right? Like, I cannot just make the orcs super strong with magic or super strong with, let's say, range attacks. So that's how it worked in the previous Age of Wonders games. If you choose the race, you are locked in with their traits. The good news is that's not the case anymore. You can freely change your body and mind traits. You can see it here with the Redkins. Normally the Redkins are starting with quick reflexes, which is right here, but the person then chooses to say, okay, I don't want that. I want keen-sighted, which gives me 20% accuracy on physical ranged and magic attacks. So yes, basically your physical form / your race is nothing more than fluff. It's a skin, because you can completely choose what kind of traits they are starting at. So yes, even the dwarves can be absolute masters of magic, if you so desire. Or the Redkin can be absolute masters in defense fights. You have the option to change that. And it doesn't limit you anymore. And that brings us to the next very important step. And this is your culture and society. So let's talk about the culture. The culture you kind of knew from previous Age of Wonders games, right? So the culture was very much linked with your race. Like, as I already said, the dwarf in Age of Wonders Plan 4, I always forget their real name, but they are dwarves. Let's face it, they are dwarves. And they already have that culture. Like, they were the dwarf race, and they were industrious. You can see industrious here, right? And they were kind of industrious. They had like huge drills. They were working with magma and like industrial buildings and industrial vehicles. And you had the same thing kind of in Age of Wonders 3, where you would always choose your race, and your race would come with already a culture embedded into them. And you couldn't change that. So they now took this apart, and they said you can choose your race, but you can also choose the culture freely. So the Redkin could be the barbarians here, which would give them more structures with food and draft income. Melee units have a primal strike, dealing extra damage on the first strike in combat, and they have the ritual of alacrity. And so now you have the free choice to choose whatever culture you want to. And the next question you probably have is, wait a minute, okay, I get that, but what are those symbols? What are those symbols on the side? What is that? So this is really important for something completely different. We will not focus on that in this video, sorry, because it is its own thing. But in game, think about those symbols you are seeing here as talent points for the research / talent tree. And the more of those points you have, the more you can go down a branch on that tree, and you can unlock like passives, units, research, and all that. You can see it right here, right? This is the symbol they choose, or they gotten by playing the Barbarian +1, and they have then 4 in total. So the more of those icons, or talent points in this case, you are collecting, the more you can unlock later on in this tree. But again, we will talk about this in a separate video, because this is pretty in-depth, and the choices you can make here is kind of crazy. So, now that we have chosen a culture, let's talk about the society traits. This is also very important. Just because you choose the culture, that doesn't necessarily mean that the culture has to focus on one thing alone. Again, they took the whole idea of a race and did split it up in Age of Wonders 4. Now you can choose, what does this culture have? Like, you can have ritual cannibals, prolific swarmers, and you can see it also that they are getting points again. And this is the good or evil choice, right? So you're becoming more evil or you're becoming more good. This has been in the Age of Wonders games for an eternity now. And you can freely choose what you want. In this case, the person did choose the prolific swarmers, and they gave you cities require -10% food for gaining a new population. Tier 1 units have a +1 rank. Non-magic origin units require -20% unit upkeep, and you start with an extra tier 1 unit. Again, You can go completely bananas here, but I think what most people would do is, if you were choosing the barbarians, right, it kind of makes sense to focus already on melee fighters or swarm fighters, something like that. Like I don't really know how well the barbarians will work wonders with, let's say, gifted casters and mana channelers who are very much focusing on the magic aspect of a race and of a faction. So we will see how much freedom we really have here and how much is just unplayable, right? That was the problem the other Age of Wonders games had in the past, that yes, you had a lot of options, but a lot of them were not really feasible at that point, right? So the next thing, this is by the way the second society trait you can choose from. This one is the Fabled Hunters. Gain 100% resources from clearing an infestation, ancient wonders, or research node, and ranged units and skirmisher units have +1 rank. Start with an extra ranged unit. So this person is completely focusing on swarm units, on massive, not super expensive units, but it's quantity over quality with this build. And that brings us to the next big part in Age of Wonders, and that is the tomes. So, a few things here. Tomes, if you would compare to previous Age of Wonders games, is a little bit like your secret weapon / class, but this one is much more complicated, and I will probably make another video about this, because when it comes to like all the tomes which are available, it's a massive amount. It's just absolutely crazy. But you choose a first tome at the beginning of the game. It will be tier 1, as you can see already here. It will tell you exactly what the tome will do, improves your units with unit enhancements, and specializes in physical damage. And then you're also getting an initial bonus, which we will take a look at in just a second. And you're also getting all the spells / units / buildings which are coming with a tome for your first tome. Later on in the game, you can unlock even more tomes, and you then can combine them. But to do that, you have to basically research the tome, and then you have to research the spells in that tome. So it would take much, much longer to unlock more tomes later on. And so the first tome is kind of important, because you just get everything. You just get it. This is your starting point, right? Here's the Tome of the Beast, which has also like its own perks. So there's a lot to choose from. And when you have done that, you can also see again what it does. Right, here's the mob camp. This gives you +7 food, +7 draft, unit deployment location. Tier 1 units are cheaper by 20% and counts as forester. Must be built on an acquired province if you want to build a mob camp, right? So choosing your first tome is really important. And I think just with the tomes alone, the possibilities are endless in Age of Wonders. It would be absolutely crazy. And I think it would blow a lot of 4X games out of the water with the choices you can make here. And then later on, of course, as I said, you have all the other tomes you can combine in it. And there are also multiple tiers of tomes, right? So the choices are just mind-boggling if you think about it, which is fantastic. But if you're done with that, you have to choose your faction leader. So that sounds a little bit more fancy than it is. You have 2 choices right now. The first one is the Wizard King. You are focusing mostly on spells and combat. All cities have 10% mana income, word map casting points, and combat casting points per level of the Wizard King. Wizard Kings have the overchannel ability in combat, which allows them to basically cast 2 spells per turn. And again, really focused on magic and the combat aspects, while the champion, on the other hand, can also wield magic. It's not like they can't. They can. Totally doable. But they are focusing mostly on passives on the strategy map. All cities have 10% more gold income and 20% city stability. All non-hero units gain 20% more experience. And to start with 100 relation with 3 cities, which is really important for diplomacy. So you have to make the decision if you want to be more magic, combat focused, or if you want to be somebody who was focusing more on the aspects on the strategy map. And when you have all that, the most important thing in the game is the looks. Yes, of course, the looks are back. If you're asking, wait, body type, physique, arm length, does that do anything in combat? No, it doesn't. This is all fluff. This is really just how you will look like. You can choose the color of your faction. You can choose the banner of your faction. Like, this is the fluff part. The only thing which, at least at the beginning, does make a difference is you can also choose your weapons. Here you can see the axe and shield. And that means your dude will, well, fight with an axe and shield at the beginning of the game. Keep in mind, you will find more items throughout the game, and you can just change it then, right? If you decide that you don't want to be the axe and shield guy anymore, you want to be more a caster, you can totally do that. That is completely up to you. But that is how you create your own faction in Age of Wonders 4. And I have to say, it's bonkers. Like, I know this is just scratching the surface, and we have still so much to talk about, but we need more details. And yes, there will be cookie-cutter factions. I can already guarantee you that. I mean, there were cookie-cutter factions in Age of Wonders 3, there were cookie-cutter factions in Age of Wonders Planetfall. They totally existed. But the real fun was just to experiment with all the different perks you had in those games, and you could already do quite a bit. But as I said, there were some limitations where it just didn't work together. If you tried to combine like fire and water with each other, so to speak, it would just not work. I think in Age of Wonders 3, I tried once to have evil high elves with light magic. Total disaster. Absolute total disaster. It didn't work at all. And I'm just hoping now in Age of Wonders 4 that is not really the business anymore. You can just really choose your own cool faction. And I'm hoping that's at least what the developers said. There is no wrong decision anymore, just interesting combinations. We will see if that's really the case. Because as I said, I think there will be a few things like barbarians with like a lot of caster might not work at all. So we will see how true that statement is in the end. But this seems to be such a huge step forward to really take the RPG approach and create your own army, your own leader, and it is your own playstyle which is represented. It feels a bit like the D&D of 4X games. There's a lot of freedom, and everything else is up to your imagination. With that said, thank you so much for watching. We will be back with more Age of Wonders videos. If you are interested in turn-based games, strategy games, building games, you all find that here on the Mole Under Management channel. There will be, of course, a lot of Age of Wonders in the future. We are just starting out here. Like, the whole channel is just starting out. So if you're interested in seeing more, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to like to the video and maybe showcase it to other people who might be interested and who have never really seen how the factions are being created in Age of Wonders, if you're interested. But again, tell me also in the comments down below, which faction are you going for the first time? I'm really curious to hear about that, see all the ideas coming together. That sounds like an amazing thing. But yeah, let me know down below in the comments. I will try to answer and read as many as I can. And again, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.